Yeah. How does technology change then between, say, 15 years ago when you started using the iPad and perhaps some of the solutions that are coming out and being built today? Is there like an obvious difference, or maybe there's just some like um, thoughts that you formed having been in the field for so long?
Man, to me, it feels think to someone just graduating college and coming out. They don't understand where it was.
As a co-founder or founder of your own product, as someone who is paying for technology from the GC side, what are your thoughts on the pricing model?
Yeah, I like to have the wild takes on things. So I'll say straight up, I do not like right.
Piece of advice could you give to your startup founders to build great products?
And I mean, start with going on site and finding out right and figuring out if it is a problem.
How is technology actually used in AEC? In corporate innovations, we explore the innovation and implementation procedures used by those who actually use the tech on a day-to-day basis. Before we get started though, if you're a startup founder or operator responsible for innovation in your company, or you want a deeper, more insightful look into technology in AEC, you won't want to miss our newsletter. From deep dives into particular technologies such as AI, robotics, design, software, and so on. Hot takes from investors betting big in AEC technology and advice on building tech companies, including the stories and takeaways of the most successful AEC technology founders. Head over to www.bricks-bytes.com and sign up today to get this exclusive material straight to your inbox. And now for the episode.
So, John, you're the director of technology at Andrus Construction. And I just said before, you told me a great story about how you got involved with the technology side within construction. So I will not steal any of your limelight here and let you take the forefront.
Awesome. Yeah. So I'm a third generation contractor here in Texas. My grandfather, uncle, dad, cousins, everybody, we worked in construction. So, I kind of started out in the field, actually sweeping and putting up handrails. And finally made my way to the office side, and learned the office side the old way, and did paper updating drawings and RFIs and all that. And then we were looking for a way to do project management software, and actually the company started using Procore back in 2009. So very, very, very early. And kind of how I came apart, I started using Procore in my internship and went off to college. And that year is when the iPad came out, my freshman year of college. And I was an Apple fanboy, still have the newest iPhone, always do. Waiting in line for the iPad when it came out, and put my textbooks in college on the iPad. And immediately thought, like, man, this could be a game changer in construction if we had all of our drawings on here. So drove back to Dallas, showed my dad that I got the drawings on the iPad. And I think the next day I was walking out of the Apple store with 47 iPads and setting them up for everybody in the company. A little sketchy walking out of the Apple store like week one with 47 iPads.
I was going to say, you're lucky you didn't get jumped.
I was in a nice part of town, but still pretty scary walking out with multiple bags of just Apple bags.
I'm sure it was a different time than right now.
Yeah. I still remember our Wi-Fi password because I had to put it in 47 times from back then. But yeah, I mean, it was cool. And I remember, we pushed Procore to build an app because we were able to get the drawings on the iPad. And so it was pre-Procore having their iPad app. And so it was kind of the Wild West of construction tech back there.
So actually, the birth or the introduction of the iPad into humanity was really where Procore found their sweet spot, right? And things took off from that point onwards. So,
Oh, for sure. And it's
so
the way that you were able to take Procore into the field.
do they credit you for their success?
No.
Nah.
No way. No way.
Damn.
No way. All good. We are still big Procore users, still 15 years later.
Nice.
So that's within Andrus, right? Can you tell a little bit more about Andrus? Like, what do you guys do? What type of projects? How big the business is?
Sure. Yeah, Andrus, we're a GC in Texas. We only build in Texas. We build mostly what we call heads and beds. So everything you sleep in at night, multifamily, hotels, senior living, student living. We also do a lot of private schools and churches. And we only build in Texas, right? We have about 150 employees and do around 500 million in revenue, each year, plus or minus depending on the year.
Yeah. How does technology change then between, say, 15 years ago when you started using the iPad and perhaps some of the solutions that are coming out and being built today? Is there like an obvious difference, or maybe there's just some like thoughts that you formed having been in the field for so long?
Man, to me, it feels obvious. Think to someone just graduating college and coming out, they don't understand where it was. And it's kind of it's a very interesting question, actually, because the people who are more senior than me never had technology, the technology we have today, to build the buildings that you see on these big, when you're looking at a downtown, most of those buildings were not built with, iPads and Procore and, scheduling software that's helping do AI scheduling, right? Like it was built with Microsoft Project or P6 and, Excel maybe, but a lot of paper documents and a lot of paper drawings. So it's kind of an interesting part to us right now where like you have the older generation that was able to build without tech. You have the newer generation that was like, we only know tech. And I'm like, feel like I'm lost sometimes in between where I'm like, we need tech in order to build this stuff in the future. The people coming up need that technology. Maybe the older people don't understand how it's actually beneficial because they were able to do it without it. But to me, like I started doing paper RFIs and having to post RFIs in the back of the tape it to the back of the drawing and then cloud the RFI and write the RFI number on the drawing. And going from that to just linking it on Procore, and being able to do it, really what's cool is that you're able to do it when you write the RFI rather than after the RFI has been answered, right? So you're actually able to change like when people are able to find that information and move it faster up into like when they're looking at their drawings, they can see that there's an open RFI versus back in the day, you had to look at the drawings and see that there's been a closed answered RFI there. So it's kind of a weird point where like, I don't know, people in their 30s, probably in construction right now, like the construction and construction tech is like a totally different view than people that are younger or people that are older.
What about like more tangible tech, perhaps on sites? Do you see like a large difference between what was back then and what have we got right now?
Tangible tech meaning?
Tangible tech meaning anything that does things mechanically, or I can mention like robotics, but there's loud about robotics right now. But yeah,
I guess
and the tools,
even like layout equipment, right? Take layout equipment, great one. I literally remember learning how to use a site level, right? And now we have robotic total stations. It's been a huge leap, over that time, so even the tools that people are using out in the field have changed immensely. yeah, there's total stations. I think there's total stations 15 years ago that were just manual total stations. They weren't the robotic ones, right? But now, we've even got the GPS RTK units, and those speed up things even more. So yeah, I mean, all the way out in the field, that stuff is changing as well. But yeah, robotics coming along is definitely going to be a huge change to the field. And actually it all starts with that layout equipment, right? Like if you don't have the good layout equipment and you can't use the robotic total station, it's going to be very difficult to tell a robot how to orient itself on site, right? So those are like the baby steps that we've taken to be able to take, robots and have robots on our projects in the future.
I actually was reading or looking at some notes from a podcast series that we've done, and the company that has the robots in question, they're bricklaying robots. So a human goes to site before they deploy the robots on site and does like all these laser scans of the actual condition of the site, because inevitably the door is slightly out of plumb, or someone installed the wall 20 mil too far to the left or whatever. And they need like precision perfection for the bricklaying robots to do so well. So I wonder if like layout robotics actually would prevent the need to have to go to site and scan manually before deploying the robots themselves.
Depends who builds it, right? Because you can put the layout as perfect as you can imagine, but then like, is it going to be built as perfect as the layout shows? It should be better than without layout.
Yeah, ideally, when you're doing those layout robots, they probably need to be doing laser scans to capture the as-built stuff as well.
Interesting. John, you also involved in a few other things, also tech related as well. So I suppose it adds emphasis to your role. But you're the co-founder and CEO of Provisual. Can you just talk to the audience about that?
Yeah. So as a longtime Procore user, I obviously saw a few gaps in the tool and how we were using it. And one of which was just how we manage that QA/QC process on Procore. So we built Provisual to be like a visual tool to understand your inspections, observations, and punch lists on Procore. So we actually take that information that you're doing in Procore. We don't change anything with your process on how you go do those things, but we tag those to the drawings, and actually almost like you're highlighting your drawings just like you would on the trailer wall, and actually helping show you that progress on your drawings. So it's pretty awesome tool to use, like if you're trying to manage a team to get those things done. It's a visual lean tool to line people out and show them the areas where we still have things to fix, where maybe we pencil whip something and we have to go back and return to that area. We've got some cool things that we're working on in the future that I hope to be able to come back one day and talk about.
So it is a point solution right now. Can I call it this way?
Yep.
Okay. And
point solution in that marketplace.
Hey listeners, I want to take a quick break to remind you about the Bricks and Bytes newsletter. If you're interested in learning about the technology shaping the future of construction, you won't want to miss the valuable insights we share each week. To get this exclusive content delivered straight to your inbox, head over to www.bricks-bytes.com and sign up today. Link is in the show notes. Back to the show.
And who is the customer for this contractor as well?
Yeah, so it's focused on a general contractor or an owner's rep that wants to, maybe like an owner's rep that has Procore that wants to manage that the construction team that they're using is following the QA/QC process they sold. So really it can be any stakeholder that uses Procore. The kind of the minimum thing that you have to do is you have to be a Procore client in order to use Provisual.
Interesting. And as well as so far we've got to you use the tech, you build the tech, and you also invest in technology as far as I'm aware.
360 view.
Yeah, I guess I'm a glutton for punishment there, but I really enjoy construction tech, and wanted to kind of get a full picture of the construction tech world, right? I felt like I knew how to implement tech and how to find good tech. What I didn't know is like the whole investment world in it to be able to go along for the ride. You know, I told you about my origin story with Procore. What I didn't tell you is that we didn't invest in Procore, and I consider it my Batman origin story. Where, you know, it's what led us to starting to invest in things. We felt like we missed out on that one.
Yeah. Well, I'm very curious. At what point did you guys decide to have like technology department within Andrus?
I mean, we'd used Procore for several years. I think what it came down to is we decided that we wanted to kind of have a systematic way in doing certain things. What happened was a lot of projects were kind of doing things their way, and each project had their own kind of way of doing things. And so to kind of organize data and stuff, we had to make sure that there were some systems in place to make sure we were using the tool the same way on each project. And it kind of just happened truly where people were calling me within the company to help them with their project or help them with something with Procore. And I kind of just stepped into this role doing that. And the whole point of it has been to kind of have systematic processes within our company, make sure that as we roll tech out, that we're doing it in a way that, you know, one person can be pulled from one project and go be put in place to another project, and they know exactly what is expected of them. You know, it's kind of why we do enterprise contracts on pretty much every software that we use, is because we want our employees to know that they're going to have those tools on every project, and that they're not going to get hired and get all these really awesome tools, and then on the next project, you know, completely strip them down to nothing, and they've got to use Google Sheets and, you know, Bluebeam to manage their project, right? Everything we do is enterprise contracts so that we can plug and play people into projects, and everyone knows what's expected of them, and everyone knows how to use the tools.
Is it quite unusual, John, your team of 150 people, to have like a dedicated person to innovation? I only ask this question because based on my life experience so far, the people that we spoke to on the podcast, it seems to have an innovation team or person when it gets to like thousands of employees. Is it like, are you quite like a smallish company to be doing this kind of thing, or is it more regular than perhaps I know?
I think it's more common than you think. I think it's not so much about the number of people as it is the volume of work that you do, right? Because you could have a ton of people and not do much volume, right? But I mean, so kind of where, you know, another person our size is Rodney O'Brien here locally in town. I think you've talked to Todd Wynn before.
Yeah. Yes.
You know, I've kind of, you know, Todd, when I was first starting out in this role, like I called Todd up and we went to lunch and, you know, talked to him about what all entails. And, you know, he was definitely a mentor early on in my construction tech career. And I mean, so they're around the same size as us, and they've got a CIO. So, you know, just having one tech person in your company, I think is, very manageable. And really, if you're not focusing on tech, you're just setting yourself up for failure when you try to use anything with your data later on, because you've got to have someone that's focused on making sure that everything is done in a systematic way, that you're collecting the data in a systematic way, that you can go use that data, because bad data in is bad data out, right? And consistent processes drive consistent data.
How do you like pick and choose technology that you want to use on projects? Like, what's your process and strategy?
Roll the dice.
It could be.
No,
There's a lot of solutions out there.
There's a lot of solutions out there, man. That's a tough question. I'd love to say like I had like a checklist or a formula for it. What it comes down to is there a need for that software? Right? Is there a need for that tool? Then going out and looking for the tools. And that's where, being part of these funds is helping to kind of source some of those early stage people and those things. Cause typically when we're at the point where we've got most of the like standard construction tech when you think of it, right? Like scheduling, project management, photo taking. We've got all those, right? Drones. Whenever we're going beyond that, it would be more of like a search for it. And so most of them are going to be early stage companies. And that's where we lean on the funds to help introduce us to those people. And I spend a lot of time going to conferences and meeting with people. I know we're talking virtually here, but I really enjoy meeting with people face to face and seeing a product demo face to face at conferences. I think it's very hard to replicate that. And what it comes down to when you're working with an early stage company is the people, right? Working with good people and knowing that they're going to be there to help your company succeed versus working with someone who's just trying to make the sale and you'll never see them again, right? So there's a few things that kind of play into how we choose things, but people are definitely a huge part of that decision. And their tech has to work. But when it comes down to a tiebreaker between two things that work, it's going to always come down to the people.
Yeah, when you spoke with large GCs like $5 billion, $10 billion of turnover or revenue, then it feels like it's much more difficult to onboard technology for them. Based on the vibe I get from you right now, it's much easier for startups to get plugged in within your business. Would you say that that's perhaps true or not really?
I'd say it depends, just like everything, right? It's going to depend on what it is and how much need there is for it. And really what it comes down to is how many people it's going to impact in your company, right? A tool that you are only giving to, the project manager, maybe it's teaching them how to use Power BI, right? Like that's a pretty simple thing. We only have a certain number of project managers. You're only having to talk to that one person. Pretty easy, self-explanatory. We built out this dashboard for you to go look at it, right? It's different than, hey, here's a scheduling software that the superintendents, the assistant superintendents, the project managers, APMs, everybody's going to go into and look and use and add stuff into every day. It differs by software and by how many people need to be a part of that, right? Rollouts are difficult there's always pain in a rollout. And a lot of times, as like a tech person, I've got to realize that like a lot of these things we can't find on our own during the demo phase or, while we're reviewing tech. Like a lot of the true bugs in the software are going to come out when you implement it, right? And so we try to not roll out across the board right off the bat. We try to have at least a demo project that we're going to use it on. There's some times where there's something that's like, we had to rip out our drone software because they sunsetted their company and we had to replace it with something. So we had to roll something out, right? And so in those cases, you've got to go full bore, everybody in the company at the same time. In other cases, when you're trying to find something new, you can do it as like a one-off demo and then grow. Like the kind of the land and expand is what like a startup would call it, but kind of like have a demo project and then grow that and just let it spread naturally through the company as you have new startups. But yeah, so there's no great answer there, right? It just kind of depends.
Is where does innovation stem from typically, John? Is it the guys on site complaining? Is it something that you see at like a management level? It's like, oh shit, all our projects are delayed, or we're not getting accurate photo records, or whatever it might be. Or maybe it's just like, look, guys, we need to do innovation, whatever that might mean.
Because competition is doing it.
Yeah.
Man, so I'm gonna drop a bomb here, right? As much as we throw that word innovation around, I think construction companies we're not being truly innovative, right? I think we're great at being implementers. We're not truly great at being innovative, right?
That's true.
So, I would say I'm like an early adopter, an early implementer, right? As Andrus Construction, we are not an innovative company, right? We see people that have innovative ideas and we figure out how we can implement those into our systems. Personally, I guess I'm a little innovative because I've got my own startups. I can't like completely squash innovation there, but it's really tough to be innovative inside of a construction company. And what it turns out is where you're like rolling something out of the company and doing a startup within the company and rolling it out, kind of like what Todd did with Project Atlas, right? He was innovative inside the company and he rolled that outside of the company. But it's very rare that someone's like truly innovating something. And it's really hard to say that you're innovating something when you're implementing someone else's tool that they built, right? So it's a tough one. I know a lot of people like fight me on that. But
I think it makes
like
sense.
my personal belief on that, right? We just keep throwing innovation around. And I think truly the innovators are the people that are building product, right? But I mean, to like kind of go to what your question really was about, right? Was like, how do you innovate within the company, right? Like the problems kind of, come up either from failed projects where something happened and how do we not let that happen again on the next project, right? Or, hey, well, a lot of times I'll sit in the job office trailer and I go, hey, what are y'all doing? And I'll just kind of watch people and I look for spreadsheets more than anything, right? If someone's doing something in a spreadsheet, I want to figure out how we can automate that to where they're not having to do a spreadsheet to track that. Kind of, that's where ProVisual kind of came into play, right? Is why are we filling out spreadsheets? And especially as construction people, we're not accountants. Like using Excel and being good at Excel, like you can be a, first grader and use Excel like we do in construction. Like we're not writing these crazy formulas. It's more of dates and task names and maybe some color. Very, very rare do we have like crazy formulas, right? I've built some pretty cool spreadsheets, but for the most part, when they're like originated in the construction project, it's just to track something, right? And so how do we take those things that you're tracking and how can we apply tech to them to make them better, right? So end of project problems and searching for, the things that are causing waste, it's that lean process of eliminating waste. Those are probably the two places where innovation stems the most at Andrus. But sometimes it's someone coming to me with a problem. Most of the time, it would have been something I would have caught if I just watched over them and kind of talked about that spreadsheet thing, right?
Yeah.
Being a part of the team and understanding where there's waste is a big part.
Do you know what's funny? Talking of spreadsheets, just very quickly, Martin, I'll let you ask the question, but I just want to make a statement because it's quite funny. Okay, it's not funny. It's very serious. But there's a company in the UK, John, maybe you heard of it, that recently went into administration called ISG. And they're like a multi-billion pound turnover tier one contractor. We classify tier one as like multi-billions, work on massive projects here in the UK. And someone put a post out, it was like, most of their company was essentially run on Excels with like tens of thousands of rows of data. And this is absolutely crazy. Like, this 1 or 2 numbers that are wrong, perhaps in a spreadsheet, the damage that could do to the company. I reckon maybe that they failed because their spreadsheets were so shit.
Well, I think this is a perfect example of sleepwalking into like very changing environment, really, which was in the last few years. Speaking of interest rates right now, for example. And so, so can you give us an example of like end of project problems in the last few years that you guys spotted and tackled with tech? And perhaps I will also ask about what you still haven't found as a tech solution for a problem that you still have.
That's a good question.
You're going to have to ask me that again in a second because I'm going to forget when I'm talking about this, but that's fine. So hold that thought. But, okay. So tech that we ended up implementing after a bad problem, right? So we have projects where, at the end of the project, you have change orders that come in, right? And oftentimes the change orders come in at the very end and we've already in the contingency. And so they're going to come out of your fee, right? They're going to start coming out of, either your fee enhancements or out of your fee directly, right? And a lot of times we can't verify that change order work, right? Painting is something that's super difficult to figure out. If someone came back into the room and repainted that room the same color, right? It's almost impossible to walk away, walk back another day and be like, this room has been repainted. You can see if it's been touched up, like that spot that you put blue tape on is touched up and it's fixed. But did they repaint the whole room or did they just touch up that one spot, right? They can send you a change order though, and the change order is to the whole room. Well, we took that as a way that we wanted to figure out, how we could better monitor people on our job sites, right? And know where people were. And that was one of the things that stemmed it, but then find all these other things that you can do when you're monitoring people on job site, like, production rates and safety to be able to get them out of the building, But so we ended up implementing a system called Jinda. It's an Israeli tech that actually has a smartphone app that all of our workers install on their phones. They do their job site orientation and their daily JHAs on that. And they can do things like call the hoist, report safety issues, be alerted if there's a fire or an active shooter in the building. It's kind of our way to message with them. We treat it as digital PPE. But at the same time, we also know exactly where people were in the building. So we can actually verify of our schedule, if people are working according to schedule or if they're working ahead or behind plan. But then at the end of the day, if we need to verify change orders, we put it in our contract now that, all change order work is going to be verified via agenda, right? And we've had huge savings. I don't know if I'm supposed to talk about the amount, but very, very large numbers of savings to where the software paid for itself multiple times over. Where, and I'm going to, just in case anyone is hearing this that maybe was affected by that, right? We want to pay people when they do work. We don't want to pay people when they don't do the work, right? So we want to make sure that if we are paying a subcontractor to do a change order, that they actually did that change order work, right? So when we sub to a sub and then they sub it out to another sub and then that sub change orders them and they just pass it along to us without verifying it, that's what we're trying to solve here, right? At the end of the day, as a general contractor, we're working on like a 3% margin, right? And that fee slippage at the end of the project by change orders is
can be
critical to us. Yeah.
So this is a great example. Did you go out to the market and try to find a solution, or you've heard about solution and then said, oh shit, actually I can use it for my painting problem?
Yeah, no. So we went out to the market, looked at different solutions. There's a lot of wearable solutions in the market, to be able to say, hey, you wear this. They're going to love this because I always say this, but, we don't like the wearable ways at Andrus, at least. We didn't like the having to ask a worker to wear something on them all day or on their hard hat so that I can track you, right?
There's
We
something
wanted
about
it to
that.
be a two-way street to where we're providing a tool to the worker, allowing them to be part of this construction and this digital transformation of construction, allow them to be part of that with us. And in return, they get something and we get something, right? I always say it's, we have cows here in Texas, like we're weekend ranchers is what my dad would call us. But, we've got a lot of cows and, we put cattle tags in their ears and it has a number on them. And all we do is trap that cow with that number. It does nothing for the cow, right? And wearables on job sites are just the same. It's just, you're just tracking people and it's doing nothing for them specifically. It's for the benefit of the GC or for the client, not for the benefit of the worker, right?
Yeah, it's a great take.
So that's where we really wanted to find a solution that actually benefited the worker. And that's where Genda came into play.
Curious, John, what was the sort of deciding factor to use Genda, perhaps aside from like the wearable side of it? Was it you mentioned earlier, sometimes the team, price, the actual product itself?
Well, team, price, product all came with awesome check boxes. It'd be hard to say I didn't like the data as well. With wearables, you can only get larger data. So what happens is you've got a wearable is the Bluetooth piece, and then they've got to put in basically computers that are going to send that signal back to the internet, right? And so when you're wearing a wearable, the level of detail and what location you're in is a much larger space because the expensive part is that computer that you're having to move around, right? With Genda, we're actually able to make the wearable, the beacon, the thing that we bury it in the concrete. So it's there for the life of the project. We don't have to move them around. You can have it all the way from when you're stripping forms all the way to when you're finishing units. You don't have to move those things around. And the expensive part is the phone, and the phone is transmitting, all the time, right? So, and we're getting room-based data rather than level-based data, right? So we can monitor how much time a plumber spends in an A-type unit or a B-type unit, and not just how much time they spend on level 12, right? So the data there, in order to be able to extrapolate that and use that in a AI solution down the road for scheduling purposes, is way better than level-based data, right? Having that more granular detail into the actual room is going to be, I think, a lot better and more useful down the line, right?
Yeah. Agreed.
What other end of project problems
Or maybe what your
perhaps-
tech stack looks like.
Oh, tech stack. We're very public with our tech stack. If you go to our website, andrusconstruction.com, at the very bottom of the page, we've got our tech toolbox.
Oh, nice.
So we put that out there for everybody to see. We don't want to gatekeep there. So yeah, I'll just go through it. Procore for, everything. CM Builder, which is our, 4D logistics schedule system that we're using. They're out of Canada. Great guys. We've got DocuSign for everything. So we do the Procore DocuSign integration. Outbuild, scheduling software. Drone Deploy, for our interior 360s. Builder for our closeout software. SiteAware is our pre-pour and pre-exterior inspection, via drones. Really cool product. Genda, which we just talked about, and then Document Crunch, which we love Document Crunch.
Which one's your favorite?
That's tough, man.
I'm kidding. You don't have to answer.
Yeah, that's tough. I don't want to hurt anybody's feelings.
Who's got the coolest logo? I'm just looking at it.
Provisual.
My question is, does it help when speaking with potential clients, when did you discuss with them technology using, or is it a compelling case that you guys are using some technology?
Yeah. So we are putting all that stuff into the like proposals that we send up to the clients, where we attach, one pagers on all the tech that we're using. We very much lean on that as like the differentiator when you come build with Andrus. We know we're not the cheapest, and we're not trying to be the cheapest. We want to make sure that our clients can come work with us and that they can go and build more than just one project. They can go and not have to worry about the one project and babysitting us, that we're going to have everything, going well. So yeah, so we know we're not the cheapest, but we definitely sell that into the, like when we're trying to win work. But we have a lot of repeat business with our clients too. We've built one client recently that we just finished our 13th project with them, and we've got a couple more in pre-construction right now. So,
is there any problem that you're looking for a solution right now?
Yes. Data, data is big. I think data is the next truly big thing in construction tech. But not just aggregating data, right? We have Power BI. We get all of our Procore data in Power BI right now. But I think one of the hard parts about construction data versus a lot of different industries is everything is its own project, right? That one project is special, and it's not like any other projects, unless you're building every Starbucks across the United States. For the most part, most of the GCs that are probably listening to this podcast right now are building unique buildings each time. And so, how we are looking at those KPIs and looking at that information, there's some similarities that we can do between those things, but a lot of these deals are so different in how we set them up. So there needs to be some sort of better way in how we are looking at our data, right? And how we are managing that data within our teams, right? A big one is just when we've been talking about fee. How is the fee made up, right? Each project, how the fee is made up is completely different. It can be that we have a 3% fee on this project, a 3.5% fee on that project. We could be saving, do a saving split that's 50-50 with the client, or we might get the architect involved in the contingency savings or in the total overall savings at 20%. We could get the first $1 million of contingency savings goes back to the client, or we could get all of the contingency. It changes on every project. And that's such a tough thing to do and craft in some sort of, table that's truly just like black and white data, right? So we've been looking at a bunch of different data solutions that are pulling data from multiple sources, from different tools via their APIs and such. Starting to land on a couple. I think I've picked my horse at this point. We're in talks right now to move over. So,
watch this space. Watch the space.
Watch this space. There's just so much cool stuff that's going to come with data. I kind of dropped off on my thoughts there, but being able to also mark something, right? So we have projects that we get a limited notice to proceed. We start the project on Procore, and then we're going to change order the entire scope of work into that project. We'll have an $80 million change order, right? We had a $2 million limited notice to proceed to do some demo work, and then $80 million change order. Well, the KPIs are going to be completely off kilter on that project, right? For change orders, and the original budget is going to be thrown off too. So there's got to be ways to, not send up red flags on your things and be able to like put some context within the data so that someone that maybe isn't familiar with that project and that we did a giant change order into it, someone more senior is like able to see, oh, like we did a giant change order there. That's the context. It's not, still don't have to worry about this change order, percentage to contract value, KPI, being so red, right?
Mm-hmm. So since you haven't disclosed who the winner is, and maybe let's keep it this way.
The winner.
But, well, it is a winner to a degree.
Have a medal and trophy waiting for them.
Stay on for the next episode and I'll tell you the winner.
Okay. What were the pain points? What were the painful points, I guess, when trying to choose one between those?
And right now, there's a bunch of people in the space, right? And some of them are products, and some of them are connectors. And there's there are a ton of things to do out there with data. So having to filter out what's going to work best for our company, is going to be different than, say our top 10 company that has data analysts and things that can maybe spend more time in Power BI and build out better reports, right? So it's going to depend on your company. But really what it came down to is user interface, user interface really. And that's simple to use, simple to view, and the ability to pull in more than just one data source.
Simplicity then. Mm-hmm.
Simplicity.
Simplicity.
Curious, John. I don't know if we mentioned earlier, but we have talked about a couple of times about your involvement with Zakua as a limited partner. And some of the motivations were to stay close to tech so you can stay on the cutting edge. Why Zakua? If you're happy to answer that, out of potential other construction tech funds, and are you with them for sake of returns on investment as well, or is it more of a strategic arrangement?
And why not create your own CVC?
Oh, that's even better.
Man, why not create let's start with there. Did you not just hear that I'm director of technology? I've got a startup and I'm investing in things So I just closed an SPV yesterday. I managed that myself, and that was a pain to make an investment. Mm-hmm. So chasing other people's money is a full-time job. So I'm not trying to jump on anyone's toes in the investment space right now.
That's fair.
I would say that you don't join a fund to not have some upside, right? Like we're not just fully strategic. Yes, we want to participate. Again, goes back to my origin story, our Batman story of we missed out on a $10.6 billion exit from Procore, right? And when I say I'm talking about our business, right? The company. So our company is employee owned, which means that the employees who are using this tech are the ones who are going to benefit the most from the tech going and selling one day and having an IPO or some other exit, right? So it was really big for us to invest in the tools that we're having our people use, right? And really we're investing in the tools that our people want to use, right? So being part of Zakua is kind of a two-part thing. One, it diversifies us a little bit and helps us kind of think about some things that maybe we weren't maybe considering before. It's opened doors into meeting new people, and I mean a lot of which is helps us find new tech, right? Trying to think. I think I'm working with 3 of the initial investments in Zakua right now. pretty closely. So yeah, I mean, there's that side.
Mm-hmm. And why Zakua actually? Is it because I don't think here.
But why Zakua? So Zakua, we met through actually Matt Daly with he was formerly the CEO of Construction Site, now as part of Drone Deploy. So met through them. Again, we're big people. So when someone says, "Hey, these are good guys," I mean they came out of Cemex Ventures and out of Hilti Ventures, and we saw it as, hey, Cemex is putting a big check behind them, and these are good people. We really like their investment strategy. And yeah, so I mean, that's where we got behind them. Right. And now we've looked into other firms and could be closing on another fund, this year. So
Interesting.
Very good.
Is it the Bricks and Bytes Venture Fund?
the Bricks and Bytes Venture Fund. I didn't know you had a venture fund, Owen.
Just kidding. Okay. What's your views, John, on tech? I like this macro question on whether there's too much tech in construction or AEC space already, and whether we'll see like large consolidation within the next few years.
Man, it's tough because as a point solution, pro visual, like putting all the different hats on, right? Yeah, I think there is probably a lot of tech out there right now, and a lot of people think that there's maybe too much. But at the same time, you don't have to implement and adopt every single one of those, right? I think it's great that there's a lot of movement in the space right now, and that the best ones are gonna rise to the top, right? The cream of the butter, Martin, as you say. So the best ones are gonna rise to the top, and they're either gonna get acquired and implemented. I mean, you see that a lot with ACC and Procore, buying people up right now. I'll tell you, when I first started Provisual, my thought was that Procore was going to create some sort of app marketplace like it has right now, but like a marketplace that you could actually download and install and pay for the app, just like the app marketplace on Apple's marketplace, right? Here's a thing that can help you get even better with this tool, right? And so that's where I was trying to be on the forefront there and build a tool that would seamlessly integrate into your process, and hoping that they would kind of facilitate that transaction through their app marketplace. I don't think that's the way they're going anymore, but I think that's an interesting thing to consider for a lot of these tech solutions. Is pricing for this tech in startups. It's a lot of pain for the sales team to do it, right? And creating the tech, people can do in college, right? You can build a tool that's going to be useful. It may not be, the sexy AI or UI or have some sort of AI tool to it, but you can build useful things for construction pretty simply. It's when you're trying to grow and make these huge companies, that's when the tech starts becoming more expensive. And so I was really hoping for some sort of marketplace that you could transact and have things that are, job specific tools. Maybe you don't have to go and get a enterprise contract because, it's a tool that's meant for tracking hospitals, or it's a tool that's meant for, a data center, closeout. Something that's more specific to individual building types or to individual building stages, and being able to, pay directly into Procore or some other app market. And yeah, that's where I'd like to see it go, really. Is more of that like marketplace, like you'd see on Apple or Android marketplace, and be able to not have to pay up front for things, which kind of gets us into a pricing structure discussion, right?
Yeah. But the thing is with the market, if someone owns the market, like Apple in case of Apple marketplace, they take, I think in their case, 30% of the cost. So the solutions will be even more expensive than they are.
I would disagree, because I think you don't have to have an internal sales team. Basically, that 30% is going to Procore, where you might pay a salesperson a 50%, fee to sell that product, right? So, and then between like their salary and their bonus for that sale, it's got to be a pretty large portion of what the sale of that tech is. But if you take that piece out completely and you put it into an app marketplace and let one team of people help sell all the software, that's where I really thought,
that's very interesting point, actually.
One day.
So as a co-founder, founder of your own product, as someone who is paying for technology from the GC side, what are your thoughts on the pricing model? So you have a very interesting blend of kind of point of views here, I think.
Yeah, I like to have the wild takes on things. So I'll say straight up, I do not like per person user licenses, right? I think it works great for Autodesk for the fact that you've got one person that's using Revit, that whole system. But when it comes to a cloud-based SaaS deal, I don't want to ever buy something that is per user. It basically incentivizes people to make the software cheap by having fewer people use the software, right? And what that does is that it basically impacts the project by saying, okay, subcontractors, y'all don't need to be on the platform. I'll send you what you need to know, right? Or basically the workers in the field will never see it again, right? And so I think more things need to be open to everybody. So project-based pricing is my preferred way. It gets really interesting because when you're trying to do a enterprise contract, project-based pricing becomes really tough because you don't know if you're going to have 18 projects or 24 projects that are going to make up your $500 million in turnover revenue. So it makes it difficult. Actually, something that I started thinking about this week is, how do we take a pricing model from within a thing that we already use, construction insurance, right? And how do we apply that into construction tech? Construction insurance, when we have a rolling CSIP or, an enrollment period, we'll say, hey, construction insurance is going to cost X for these 2 years that you enroll the job, right? That's what we have to do to lock down pricing in these things in order to get them into the budget for pre-construction. And what's hard is these projects go for 24 or 36 months. And so how do you price a project if you're going to have a renewal in the middle of it, right? And if I'm going to buy it as an enterprise contract, and I know that in the middle, the price could go up, right? Which helps, you have to put in price locks and you have to negotiate like maximum increases into your contracts, but it's still really difficult to, in pre-con, like prepare for that, right? Because we have to charge, I can charge one rate to the whole job, right? And do I update my rate every year or every 2 years, every 3 years? How do I make sure that I'm going to collect all the money for all the softwares that we're going to use, right? So really, I'm trying to figure out how we can use what the insurance has developed as a rolling CSIP kind of program and enroll tech into that package, right? So for example, you would do say you're going to do $1 billion worth of Procore volume over the next 2 years, right? You have a 2-year enrollment period for that $1 billion. If you enroll in month 18, you're locking in at that $1 billion rate, right? And but that might go past, it's going to definitely go past that month 24, right? But once you've filled up that first $1 billion, then you do another contract that you enroll individual projects into at that certain cost. And that way, when you're buying tech, it's going to be for the life of the project that rate is. And you're really sure of the rate and the spend that you're going to have throughout that life cycle of that project, right? Because right now it's an art and a science all combined into one. You're trying to figure out, when you're doing these sales at an enterprise client, predict what your volume is going to be, not just next year, but the year after that and the year after that. And then, one bad thing can happen, or actually an interesting thing that happened to us is we joint ventured with a large company and ran volume on their software versus on our software, right? We ran it on their account. Well, then that was completely something that was outside of my realm and the technology world of my control, right? But it was something that we had projected as volume that was going to be on our account. And then we end up having to pay for that volume, even though we didn't do it, because we had this contract with them, right? So there's this big push right now for me to, like, how do we make pricing fair to construction and really keep the software companies in line with, when we make money, they make money. When we're not making money, then they shouldn't be charging us, right? They need to be true partners in the process, and not, well, hey, we got to keep our company afloat, and like basically push us down, right?
Right, a very good take.
Yeah. So if anyone wants to help talk to me about this, how construction insurance and construction technology could kind of merge, I'd love to talk to someone about that. That's something I've been kind of thinking about a lot on my own right now.
Okay, one last one from me then, John. I will say, putting your hat on as the GC, what piece of advice could you give to startup founders to build great products?
Man, I mean, start with going on site and finding out the problem, right? And figuring out if it is a problem. One of the things I'm figuring out as in my startup journey right now is that, like, figuring out how to describe your problem when you find it at one GC and how it applies to the next GC. What I'll say is every contractor out there does something just a little bit differently. We say we do things the Andrus way, right? I cannot tell you how many demos I've been on where someone's like, we do it the Scanskill way. We do it the Rogers O'Brien way. And everyone says the exact same thing, and it means something completely different. Right? And typically it means, like, no, we do it our way, and that's the way this is done. But there's little nuances to how people do things at different companies. And I think the really knock out, like, home run software ideas kind of already, like, they've already happened to some extent that are going to be easy to implement, right? 360 camera adoption, right? Like, it's pretty much saturated at this point. Don't go start up some 360 capture company, right? Project management, there's even more coming out now. Like, if you're just trying to start up a company to undercut the price of another company, probably not the best way, because what you'll find is, as you take investment, your price is going to have to go up, right? So truly find a problem and then figure out how to message that problem to other GCs and how to have, like, a true conversation with them and understand those problems, right? Don't go into any conversation thinking that you know everything. A lot of times, it may seem like I'm trying to come across as I know everything, but I'm also sitting there listening. Because to people and making sure that that we're going to solve their need and that the product's going to work for them.
Okay, and last one from me. So what is missing on the market for a GC turning with revenue of 500 million to make better or more informed decision when purchasing a software for the business?
What's missing?
Yeah,
to make more informed decisions.
Yes.
I mean, there's tools out there that people can, provide reviews on software. I know G2 does a bunch of stuff. And there's a couple other sites out there now that people are building to like provide feedback and stuff. I mean, it's tough when you're starting up with a startup to get that good feedback. But for people who are maybe not early adopters like me, there are plenty of people that will talk to you about the software and how it's the goods, the bads, the ups, the downs, and help provide that feedback. So I mean, reach out to people. I think a lot of people don't have those conversations. But some people do. I mean, I've talked to a ton of people about our startups. That's one of the things I tell all of our CEOs that we use, right? And that we're happy to be a reference call, for anybody. If anyone's listening, sees anything on my tech stack that you want to talk to me about, I'm there. We're very much open book and want to have that dialogue. I think unless everyone in construction is talking together, it's going to be very difficult to kind of move forward with all this tech.
Very nice. Okay, John. Well, I guess that brings us to the end. Yeah. Could you tell people where they could find out more about you, and perhaps if they have the next best data solution, should they contact you direct?
Yeah, reach out to me directly. I'm on LinkedIn every day, so find me on LinkedIn and let's connect.
Cool.
Brilliant.
Thank you,
very
John.
much.
Thank you.